Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, and we have a very special guest today. And go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Thalia Pellegrini, and I am a registered nutritional therapist.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do.
Well, I'm a registered nutritional therapist, which means I support women with lifestyle and diet guidance, basically. So I'm known as the Knackered Mums Nutritionist. I don't know if you know the word knackered in the States. In the UK, it basically means someone who's really tired all the time. So the Knackered Mums Nutritionist is kind of my moniker. So I support predominantly women, mums in their 40s who are struggling with their health.
So it's not a word that we use. It is one that I've heard of, and it's probably one of my favorite, British words.
We use it a lot.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite. It's just can we bring it here to the United States? 'Cause, saying I'm knackered, or is that how you use it in a sentence? Is that
exactly that? I'm absolutely knackered.
Sounds so much better than I'm so exhausted. I'm feeling that right now as I've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast, I'm a surrogate and I'm pregnant with twins. So I'm tired.
Understandably.
Totally knackered. So tell us a little bit about how you came upon this niche.
So I wanted to specialize in women's health. And not long after I qualified, I had my first son, and it kind of shattered my health, to be honest. Motherhood exploded everything I thought I knew about looking after myself. And it made me realize that knowing how to look after yourself and being able to, when you are responsible for another human being, was completely different. So I had to learn myself from the beginning almost how to manage my well-being when I was exhausted, when I was breastfeeding, when I was depleted. And then I learned that even when my baby got bigger, it didn't get easier, it just changed. So I had to learn again how to look after myself. So all of those lessons that I learned myself in early motherhood, and the lessons are ongoing. I have two sons who are 10 and 12, it's still ongoing. I started to share with my clients, and I started to see predominantly mums. And then I'll be honest with you, what's at the heart of my business is the loss of a close friend of mine. Jo died in 2018, and she was a mum of 3, and her boys were all under 7. And, we were at that stage where our kids were really tiny, and we just ran on adrenaline most of the time. There was so much to do. And even if you didn't feel well, you just kept going, right? Because that's what we do as mums. And she got sick. I mean, she got a flu. But she died of sepsis, and it took her very, very fast, in about 36 hours. So she cooked me dinner on Saturday night, and she died on Tuesday afternoon. And the shock of that and the grief of losing her was just really, really rocked me. But also it brought me up short. That realization of, what, we think we're invincible, and we're not. And every time I help, I have agonized in the intervening years. If I had supported her better, could it have made a difference? Was she strong enough? Was she just too tired? And I will never have the answer. And it was a tragedy. And but every time I help or support another woman, I feel like I'm honoring her memory, because that's another mum who's left me stronger and happier and healthier. So that feels really passionate to me, a deep part of my business.
Yeah, and what a beautiful way to honor her memory and her children by helping other moms not go through that same thing, and help other kids hold on to their moms and give them more energy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you said women that are 40. So do you is there a time, is there something that shifts in our body right at 40 that, like, that caught my ear because I'm turning 40 this year?
Well, listen, I don't know about you guys, but we are hearing a great deal more about perimenopause here in the UK than we ever have before. And so for women who are approaching 40 or in their 40s, it is a time of huge hormonal fluctuation. And you know what I see women who are postnatally depleted and perimenopausal. So you can imagine the hormonal sort of storms that are going on in their body. So for me, the reason I focus on that, the 40s, that period of time, is because women tend to have their children, whether they've, whether their children are just born or in their teens. It is still a decade where women are predominantly focused on the well-being of their loved ones. Their parents are aging as well. They're giving a great deal, but they're not focusing a lot on themselves. And yet it is a decade where they are probably struggling the most with their health.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated by how hormones play a role in our body, just because just one thing I've noticed this round of surrogacy is that, because I've done it 4 times, or this is the 4th time. And other times I wasn't as weepy, like I didn't cry as much as I have been this time. And they checked my hormones and they lowered my estrogen that I was giving myself because of how much I was producing on my own. And like, just seeing, because I get to see all the results, and the estrogen was in the red, meaning it's high, right? And as soon as we lowered the dosage, I felt way different. Like, what will happen is I would have a thought and then instant tears from the thought. And so I would have a thought that didn't produce the tears, and I was like, oh, that really would have a week ago, and it was the second that I shifted that hormone was when I felt the relief of these crying jags. And luckily I've done some personal development where I wasn't feeling as embarrassed about crying. But it was like, I had a thought, wow, I'm feeling so sensitive, like physically, just where I was being touched was hurting. And I thought, wow, I'm so sensitive, and instantly started crying. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Women often have the accusation thrown at them that they're so hormonal. You're so hormonal. But our hormones are our superpower as women. They allow us to fall pregnant. They allow us to grow humans. They give us our shape. They give us our plump skin. Our progesterone is our chill out hormone. It allows us to feel calm. So I embrace hormonal health. And the problem is often when our hormones are out of balance, as you've been experiencing. And actually, and there's so much we can do to achieve hormonal balance as women. What never ceases to shock me is how much women put up with month to month, and have done forever. PMS, painful breasts, period pain, heavy periods, all of these symptoms that they just think as their normal. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be. I work with women for 3 months, and they will say, every time they will say, my period started and I didn't notice it coming. And I'm like, I know, that's how it's meant to be. No PMS, no pain. It does not have to be our normal, but no one tells women this. It's kind of like somehow we're just, that's it, right? That goes hand in hand with being a woman. Pain and unhappiness for 2 weeks of a month. No, that's not okay.
I actually thought that I was abnormal because there was a moment where I noticed, well, like there would be times in the past where my period was coming, and then I would start and I'd be like, oh, that's why I've been, feeling so emotional or whatnot. But as I started just being a channel of an open channel for my emotions and not trying to stuff them and hold them back and just try to be a robot. When I stopped trying to do that, I actually would be completely surprised by my period. And it's like, oh, I started to, okay. And it wasn't like this, oh, that explains such and such, but so I thought I was abnormal.
It's so helpful. It's so helpful just to tune in. There are loads of apps now that help us track our cycle. And they're really useful because they allow you to see a pattern. And you're like, oh, you know what? I was desperate for carbs last month around this time, and the month before, and the month before. And oh, the crying, one of my symptoms of PMS is that I can't park before my period. So I lose spatial awareness. I will walk into door frames. I cannot reverse park 2 days, 3 days forward. So that's usually for me, that's like when I cannot get into a space, I'm like, my period is due, right? Yes, that's it. I check my app. Yeah, my period is due. So, it affects women in all sorts of different ways, but it is, I call our cycle our report card. What is it telling you? What flare is your body sending up? Is it pain? Is it sadness? Is it anxiety? Is it hunger? Is it low mood? All of these things are your body's very clever way of saying, I need something. Pay attention. And it's so, because we're so busy, caught up looking after everyone else, we don't pay attention.
I always felt like saying, oh, I'm just hormonal, or I'm just like blaming it on the hormones is dismissive of what is happening. Where it's like how I always described it was that, we have these walls that are up that are our protection. And when our period comes around, those walls aren't as strong. And so things seep through. And so that's actually how you're really feeling about this. You've just been masking it all along. Like, I think the reason that this came up was because someone asked me if I felt paranoid about my partner cheating on me while I was pregnant. And I thought, no, like that's not a thought that I had. And that's the first time that I said that I don't think that hormones actually create emotions. They just release what is already there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this kind of stuff is super fascinating to me, enough to be interested in a conversation, not enough to do some research on it, but very few things get me interested enough to do actual research. But but this is very fascinating to me. And so what are some of the things that you do with your clients?
My job is to be a bit of a health detective. So if a woman comes to me and she's knackered, my job is to understand what's driving that exhaustion. And, I talk about tiers of tiredness. So I'm not talking about, the tears that roll down our face. I'm talking about sort of levels. If you have a newborn or, let's face it, a baby up to any age, and your nights are broken, that's probably the reason you're exhausted. But what often happens is that our babies get a little older and they sleep better, but we don't feel better. And it may be that we're sleeping, it may be that we're not, but what else is going on? So I think about what is this person's body telling me? What can I see? What they fill in a super detailed questionnaire. What is their body telling me? And it could be postnatal depletion. It could be that there's hormonal imbalance that's showing up with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It could be IBS. It could just be they're constipated and bloated all the time. Okay, so the digestion's not working so well. It could be that their periods are a nightmare and their liver needs supporting. And what is their diet? What are they actually eating every day? What are their stress levels? I talk to mums about their stress bucket. How full is your stress bucket? You know, how full is your self-care bucket? And usually one is overflowing and one is empty. And I think we know which one is which. You know, so what do you do to address your stress? Do you even acknowledge your stress? All of these things play into our well-being. So at the heart of what I do is really helping women to hold their well-being sacred, to prioritize their own health without guilt. You have to make that shift first so that you can do the changes, even if they're small and continuous over time, but so that you can start to focus on yourself without guilt, because that's a really big sticking point for a lot of mums. I can't do that. I can't do that because it's time away from the kids, or, you know, they feed their kids beautifully, but they will fall into, you know, white pasta or red wine when the kids have gone to bed. You know, what is it that we can do to help you nourish yourself more?
Yeah. Now, my dad passed away a few months ago, and one thing, thank you. One thing that you know, cancer is something that is, most cancers can't survive without sugar. And so I made the decision that sugar killed my dad. And inside of that, I feel like that's shifted the way that I treat my body and what I put into my body. And I've wanted to, you know, give up bad food, you know, a lot. But that thought was more of a stop sign than any other thought has been. Where now when I do, you know, I treated myself to a piece of chocolate yesterday, and it actually makes me feel sick to eat something sugary. You know, one thing that they tell you to do when you're nauseous is to drink ginger ale. And there's so much sugar in soda that sometimes it helps, and other times it's like I can't even stomach it. So that, to me, that's been kind of an interesting way of seeing how my body is processing things differently. And I remember hearing, and I don't know that this is actually factual, but the more that you feed your body healthy things, the more your body craves healthy things. The same way as if you feed it fast food, the more you crave fast food.
I think that's a really interesting point. I'm so sorry for your loss. I think what I often see with my clients is that two things I want to say: when they start to nourish themselves, when they start to feel better, when they start to wake up with more energy, when they start to sleep deeper, they start to reframe how they see treats. They reframe what nourishment is. So they might go away for a girls' weekend and drink and eat whatever they want and have a brilliant time. And I always say that, because food is about, you know, nourishment comes in many forms. Food should be joy and celebration. It's not just about getting the green leaves and the, you know, and the good fruit in. They'll come to me and go, I had a great time, but I don't feel so good today. And they start to make the connection between what goes in and how they feel. And that's a really powerful connection, because once they understand that, they want to look after themselves more. And so I think that, you know, the craving healthy food, when you eat healthy food, I think the craving comes from the feeling of well-being, you know, and it's reframing what a treat is. And I say that because if you have a bowl of ice cream or a cart of ice cream in the evening, and that feels like comfort to you because you've had a super stressful day and the kids have been driving you crazy, and all you can think about is collapsing on the sofa, switching on Netflix and having whatever feels comforting to you, is that nourishing you? What is that doing to your body? You know, food is also information for our body. So what is it feeding? What is that sugar and fat feeding in our body? And it's probably feeding imbalance. And that sugar is, we know sugar is detrimental in so many ways, but we know it's going to affect your sleep in the short term. You're not going to sleep as well. You're not going to feel so good in the morning as a result. Your energy is going to be lower. So you're probably going to crave sugar because you need an energy boost. So these are the cycles we need to break. And they take some time, and they need to be approached with self-compassion, because it's not about willpower. It's about, in my mind, mums are superhuman. So we are humans doing a superhuman amount. So, and we are the hardest on ourselves over anyone else, right? If our sister or our best friend calls us and she's upset, you're going to comfort her and tell her she's amazing. We don't do that to ourselves. So it's all about the self-love piece is really important in the work I do, because we need that shift about how we feel within ourselves to give ourselves that permission to nourish ourselves and think beyond that immediate comfort.
Absolutely. And that's such a huge point that I had a conversation with somebody recently. I feel like it was a podcast episode, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was talking about like, how would you talk to your best friend? what would you say to her if she was dealing with what you're dealing with? And why would you say anything different to yourself than what you would say to your best friend or to your child?
Yeah. And I think it's really important that we model that behavior, that self-kindness and self-compassion for our children.
Yeah.
Especially our daughters, I think.
Absolutely. And I remember going to a coaching program that was a week-long program, and this one was virtual. It was before COVID, it was in person, but this one was virtual. And I remember the mom telling us about how her son had allowed so many people to move into his home that there was no longer any space for him. And she told him, no, you have to put yourself first and your needs first. And like, you can't do that. And I'm paraphrasing, but he said, that's not what you showed me, Mom. That's not what you showed me life is, that's how you're supposed to behave in life. And that was so devastating to her, that was not the example that he learned from her. Yeah. But it's true. Like what we do is, and how we behave is what our children are learning. They're not always listening to the lectures that we give. They're listening to, or they're watching, how we behave and what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's very important with how we eat.
Yes.
How we approach food, how we talk about food. I don't talk about food in the terms of good or bad or superfood. Food is food. You can eat anything you want, but they understand the connection between what they eat and how they feel. They understand that if they eat a lot of sugar, their mood will change. If they get very upset very quickly, I'll say to them, what did you eat? What have you eaten today? I left school and I had some sweets, had some candy. And it's that correlation and helping them to understand that is really important, but without pressure, without rules and restriction.
Absolutely. Case in point, when my son hurt his ankle, he wanted a popsicle.
Well, of course, that's comfort. That's okay.
Yes. And, my nephew, or not my cousin, he was never allowed to have chocolate when he was growing up because it had a serious mood altering effect on him. And then when he turned 18, he basically said, well, you can't tell me what to do anymore, and started eating chocolate. And he stopped himself because he then realized, oh, my mom does know what she's talking about, because it was altering my mood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So what is a piece of advice that you want to share with our listeners?
I think it would be to make small change. Don't feel like you have to change everything you're doing, everything you're eating in order to be well. What one small thing can you do? What feels manageable? What isn't overwhelming? And, I often say to mums, just start with your breakfast. What are you eating for breakfast? Start that meal start your day with a meal that really nourishes you and kickstarts your energy, and it will have a positive impact on everything else you eat for the rest of the day. And women always go, no, it's not, it's just how much difference can it make? And then they'll come back to me a week, 2 weeks later and go, wow, I'm not snacking mid-morning. I had more patience with the kids. I felt much, much clearer headed, all of these things. So that's what I always suggest mums do, is start with a really good nourishing breakfast. Get some protein in the morning, have some healthy fats, so some nut butter or some eggs, or maybe some, some seeds onto your oatmeal or into your yogurt. Anything that gives a little bit of a boost to your morning that is not just a sort of simple cereal and milk, which you're probably going to burn through in about an hour and a half, and then you're going to be starving, hungry, and then you're going to reach for something sweet because your brain is screaming for energy. So it's breaking that cycle starts with that really simple change of just tweaking your breakfast.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I remember hearing somewhere that before you have your cup of coffee, or maybe you guys drink more tea over there than coffee, but before you have your coffee, drink 8 ounces of water. And
yeah, absolutely.
And since I'm pregnant, I'm not drinking coffee at all. And all I'm drinking is water. And I don't miss the coffee except for the routine of it.
Yes.
I mean, and it's just, there's comfort inside grab the cup of coffee or grab the cup and put it in the Keurig and push the button. Like, it's just part of the routine. But now I just fill up my water bottle, and it doesn't have the same kind of cozy feeling that did, but I don't miss the energy from the coffee. I think because I drank so much of it that it wasn't doing anything for me anyway.
Some people are super sensitive to caffeine. So if a mum comes to me and she says she is anxious, she's suffering from low mood, I'm going to look at what she's drinking. And if there's a lot of caffeine in her diet, we're going to talk about cutting it back. Because some people are really sensitive to the impact of caffeine. So if you get a little jittery, if you get a little heart poundy after you've had a coffee, and we like that feeling, that's part of the appeal, but that might be your body saying, this isn't so good for me. And invariably cutting caffeine right back makes a big difference. And hydration levels are really important. And a lot of women do not drink enough water. So starting the day with water is a great way, because you're probably dehydrated after your sleep. So getting, our lymph, which moves so much around our body, is 90% water. We need to be well hydrated. So always aim for around, do you guys think in liters? I say 1 liter to 2 liters of water a day. You don't have to go crazy. You can flavor your water with fresh herbs or fruit. I love mint in my water, or cucumber or lemon and lime, and just sit through the day. Like you say, fill a bottle, a reusable bottle, avoid plastic, and just sit through the day. And even that, if that's the one small change that feels manageable to you, it will have an impact on your energy.
Yeah, I think that I heard from Rachel Hollis that, to pick one thing that you're going to cut out. My voice, it just went away. One thing that you're going to cut out a month for 30 days. Just, I'm going to pick one thing that I'm going to stop doing for 30 days. And for me, that kind of mind trick, like, it's only for 30 days and then I can start doing it again if I want to. And then most of the time you end up not doing it because you like how you feel. And coffee, I can drink a Starbucks, which apparently has more caffeine than any normal coffee does. I could drink a Starbucks and go immediately to sleep. Caffeine doesn't do anything to me. It is so much at this point. I know it's the ritual. Now, what I did notice when I gave up caffeine and dairy and gluten for 10 days. And when I drank coffee, the next day, my joints were hurting. It hurt to climb stairs. Like, there was that inflammation from the caffeine or whatever it is. And I found that super interesting. Not enough to give up coffee, but I did find that super interesting.
It's, you know, it's when we, like we say, tune in. What is your body telling you? Oh, that doesn't agree with me so much. Maybe I'll cut that down, but I'm not going to put pressure on myself. Like you say, you know, 30 days. Partly that's because it takes time for us to change habits. You know, we're creatures of habit. So once we change a habit, it's easier to stick to. But we need to make that feel manageable, because if someone said to you, right, you can never eat this or drink this again, your brain would panic and go, well, I can't do that. That is overwhelming. So it's all about what feels doable to you.
Absolutely. Is there a book that's been impactful in your journey?
I loved Glennon Doyle Untamed. I did. I thought it was great. I love Elizabeth Gilbert. I love the way she writes. You know, women that stand for self-compassion and empowerment just lift me up. So I love them both.
Yeah, that's I don't think I've read any of her books, so I'll put that on my book list. But self-compassion, it's life, you know. It's how how you talk to yourself is everything. It's how you're experiencing the world, and you know, you're the one person that's always around.
That's right.
We
need to be our own best friends. That's okay. You know, it's okay to be that, because that's where it starts. You know, yeah. Because if we don't treat ourselves beautifully, then why would we expect anyone else to treat us that way?
For sure. And one thing that I've noticed throughout my personal development journey was that I used to be afraid to be alone. Like I didn't want to be alone with myself. I always wanted to be with someone. And so if I was alone, I would call someone to talk on the phone, or I would ask them to go to coffee or whatever, just so I wasn't alone. And as time has gone on, when COVID first happened, this is when I first noticed that I was okay being alone.
Yeah.
I had people checking on me, like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing inside, you know, quarantine? Like, are you good? Are you okay? You know? And I was like, honestly, I'm enjoying not leaving my house and just like, for the most part, it was my son and I, and I would get a little stir crazy inside the house after about 3 days, where I just needed to go for a drive for 30 minutes. And then I felt good to just be in motion. But the being alone part was no longer something. And it wasn't until then that I realized that it wasn't something I was afraid of anymore. So somewhere along the journey, I became okay. And I think I was afraid of my self-talk. I was afraid of that, all the things that I said to myself when I was alone. Yeah. And then I went through a program where we literally like beat a chair with a towel, and like saying all of the things out loud that we say internally to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, and we went through the 7 layers or 6 layers of emotion that starts with anger and ends with love. And that I didn't realize at the time just how profound of a shift that had made for me, but it was very impactful in my relationship with myself.
It's a powerful realization.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here today and pouring into me and into our guests. And
my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And let us know where we can find you.
I am on Instagram. I am Thalia Pellegrini _nutrition. I have a private Facebook group called the Nourished Mum Meetup, which is a community for knackered mums to come together and be supported in their health. And I fill it with lots of recipe suggestions and women's health hacks and all of this kind of stuff. And you can find me on my website, thaliapellegrini.com.
Awesome. And that'll be linked in the bio of the show notes so that we get your name spelled right and we can find you accurately.
I also have a free recipe collection, which is called Fantastic in 5, and it's breakfast recipes ready in 5 minutes. So you don't have to take a long time in the morning. No one has a lot of time in the morning when we're getting kids ready for school. But you can find 5 minutes either before you take your kids to school or after to have that nourishing meal to start your day. And I have a collection that I send out to any mum that wants it. And she can register for that on my website.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you again. And we will have another episode of Imperfect Momming for you next week. And until then, keep healing. Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AliciaLyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.